making creamy balsamic pasta in 15 minutes thanks to ingredient prep. Hi there, I'm Sam with Bites of Wellness. Come cook with me. This recipe comes together pretty quickly. There are a few things that I just wanted to go through and show you. You could of course buy already shredded kale at the grocery store, but if not, I just wanted to quickly show you kind of the easiest way to remove the really thick part of the stem. We don't want that in our pasta. It takes a really long time to cook and it will make your end dish kind of like chewy. Make sure to go ahead and put a large pot of water on the stove to boil, to start to come up to a boil. We want everything to kind of cook at the same time. So you can use lasatino kale, which is kind of the longer, darker kale. I have just kale from my garden here. What we want to do is make sure that we kind of shred it up. So the same way I cut up like herbs or anything like that is the way I'm going to cut the kale, which is to just try to bundle it into a tight cigar shape and then just run my knife through it. This does not have to be finely chopped. We just want to make sure that these are going to be bite-sized pieces. So then I'm going to go across and we've got chopped kale. I'm going to put this to the side. And the other ingredient I like to prep the day of, if possible, is chopping up the tomatoes. So if you've ever put tomatoes in the fridge, you know that they start to kind of decompose and they get really mushy. So I like to wait until the day of to cut them up if I have time. You could also use a can of diced tomatoes. Just make sure you drain all of the liquid off. For this recipe, since it's a meatless meal, I am using a higher protein pasta. I'm using this green lentil pasta. It's one of my favorites. I feel like it cooks up really similar to regular pasta, but it has just one ingredient. So I don't love those chickpea pastas that have multiple ingredients in them. I really like this brand, Tolerant. There's a few other, just check your labels. So this box specifically says it will cook up in 6 to 8 minutes. We are going to cook the pasta for the least amount of time it states. I'm actually only going to cook it for 5 minutes. And the reason for that is once we drain it off, we're going to put it in the sauce and cook it again for like another minute or so it can start absorbing a little bit of that sauce, and we don't want it to be overly mushy. So I'm going to do 1 minute less than what the box states. So the idea for all of this is that we're going to try to cook everything together at once so that when the pasta's done, our sauce is just about done and everything can finish cooking together. So I've got a large skillet, preferably preheated. So as you are chopping up the kale and everything else, throw your skillet on and preheat it for 2 to 3 minutes on medium-ish, probably medium heat. You don't want it to be too hot. And we're going to add just a tablespoon of olive oil. And if you remember, we saved ourselves a lot of chopping time today by going ahead and chopping up our onions during our prep day. So we're just going to add the onions in. And while our onions are cooking, we're going to make our balsamic sauce. So this is a really creamy, yummy sauce, super easy to make. And what's unique about it is that we are using almond butter as the base to make this. So it's going to give it a little bit of a nutty flavor. If you can't have nuts, you could use sun butter for this. Just make sure that it's unsweetened. You could also use tahini, which is sesame seeds. So to the almond butter, I'm going to add balsamic vinegar. The quality of your balsamic really matters, so make sure you like that balsamic because it is really one of the star ingredients here. Just going to stir this together. We're going to add just some easy seasoning to this, just salt and garlic powder. And then to thin out the sauce just a little bit, about 1/4 of a cup of water. We just want to stir this all together. It won't look like much now, but as it sits, it'll thicken, and then as we add it to everything else, it'll really thicken up. Now our onions are really nice and translucent. They smell really good. We're going to add our garlic to this. Remember I told you to wait to add garlic until the onions are pretty much done cooking so that we don't burn our garlic. The rest of this comes together really quick. We're just going to add in that chopped kale, diced or sliced tomatoes, and that balsamic sauce. We are going to add our drained pasta. Just going to stir all this up. Remember, we wanted to give the sauce at least a minute to cook with the pasta so that the pasta could really absorb the flavor of the sauce. And then our very last ingredient for today is going to just be a can of white beans. You could add 2 cans if you want it to be a little bit more filling, or if you want this to be a really hearty meal. You could also make this with my 10-minute Italian chicken, or if you wanted to make some extra chicken earlier in the week, shred it up and then use it in this dish, you could do that as well. But this is a nice budget-friendly meal, and it's really still high in protein. The pasta that we used was a high-protein pasta, and the beans will add a lot of fiber and some protein as well. So this is a super filling meal. And there you go. That was dinner in about 15 minutes. Pasta is always quick and easy, but I hope that this really inspired you to think outside the box. This yummy meal is ready in 15 minutes thanks to some of the shortcuts we took with ingredient prep. If you love this idea, make sure to grab the freemium below and follow me for more recipes. Until then, happy cooking.